Now, interestingly, again to me, maybe not to you, but I may have a clickbaity thing on there why I don't own a 3D printer. This is the sort of thing that a lot of 3D printing owners would be crowing about. This is exactly, oh, I can just print up exactly what I want. Well, howdy. I have here an interesting little, well, no, probably not interesting, to me, interesting little problem. So this is a shower rail that I bought a very long time ago. And underneath it's got a groove, and there are little plastic hooks that go into there to slide around. And there is, the thing that made this one particularly what I wanted was this. That screws into the roof. And you just cut that to the appropriate, this was a long piece of pipe. You cut it to the height you want. And that goes into two little sockets. Well, whatever you call them. And goes up and screws into the roof. And there is the hole that it's screwed into. Well, I think that this, I still haven't painted the roof, but it's about a year or so since we got this bathroom done. And I got them to reinstall this, so here's the little, these slide into the slide, that groove, and then you hang your curtain off that. And so that, what I like, when you have a standard curtain rail like this, they're entirely held by those. There's usually a flange on them, and it supports the whole weight, and the leverage on that, it's not huge, but by the time you've got a shower curtain on it, there's a fair bit of pressure on it, and I just didn't like it. So I looked and found this one with this additional central support. Now, interestingly, our old roof ceiling was made of hair plaster, and it was all pretty old and ratty and desperately needed replacing, but it had the structure in it with all that hair. So when this groovy end was screwed in, it gave it some meat to bite on, and that held it for probably, I'm going to guess 20 years, 15, 20 years, no problem at all. Well, a year and that had completely pulled out. So the people who installed it didn't do anything wrong. It's just that ordinary gyprock will not take the load. It's got no fibre in it like the old plaster, so you just pulled out. So I noticed this with some sadness about a week ago, and every time I've been standing in the shower I've been thinking, what am I going to do to fix that? And what I don't want to have to do is crawl up in the roof and pull out a whole pile of horrible insulation that's in there, fiberglass sort of insulation, because I get very, very itchy. So I have a cunning plan. This just unscrews from there, and that end comes off. So I'm going to make something that's more akin to what is normally holding these curtain rods on. It's just going to come out. I'm going to replicate this and then come out with a flange, and that'll give me 4 screws that I can go onto, and I'll use a more robust plaster clamp system. It doesn't take a lot of weight. I don't want to make something that if you fell over in the shower and you got caught up in the shower curtain and collapsed on the floor, it would snap all the little plastic bits off here, you know, all the little plastic bits here, rather than pulling this out of the roof. If I wanted to do that, I'd have to get up in the roof. I'd have to put a bit of 4x2 or something up there, and on the other side, and screw directly into that, and I'd need metal plates and whatever. Not necessary. If we fall over and we pull the stuff out of the roof, I'll just have to patch the roof, I guess. But I have a bit of nylon, white nylon, that I think should do the job. Now, interestingly, again to me, maybe not to you, but I may have a clickbaity thing on there why I don't own a 3D printer. This is the sort of thing that a lot of 3D printing owners would be crowing about. This is exactly, you know, oh, I can just print up exactly what I want. But there's two things. One is, even though I worked CNC machines for 6 years professionally and programmed them, well, maybe because I know something about GCode and how to program these sorts of computer control bits of gear. And I kind of get a taste of vomit in the back of my throat if I ever look at the GCode that is produced by the slicer and cam packages for 3D printers. You make some tiny little part, and instead of using a GO2 or a GO3 for an arc, it puts in 5,000 lines of 0.1 millimeter movements to turn it into an arc. And I hate that. But also, by the time I designed in CAD, then put it through the slicer, and then download the program, make sure I've got the right filament that I want, make sure that the filament is dry and it's not got too much humidity so it won't print, and then have a print fail. I've got a part that's made with maybe 80% infill or something like that, and it's maybe I've been able to get something that's kind of white, but you can still, if you look closely, unless you sand it, it's still got print lines in it, and it'll do the job. And if you don't have 20 years experience as a machinist, and you don't have a lathe in your backyard, but you do have a $200, $300, $400, whatever, printer, 3D printer, that's your option. And previously, you wouldn't have had the ability to do it at all. So a 3D printer to you is an amazing asset. But to me, it's not. I've got material down there that's a solid block of nylon that is going to be, I reckon, near enough to the right colour. It's just, you know, it's up on the roof. It's actually a proper material, and I can just make a little mud map on a piece of paper with a pen, and I can draw up what I want in a minute, less, and then chuck something into the lathe and machine it. And that's what I'm inclined to do, funnily enough. Well, here's my highly sophisticated drawing. As you can see, that must have taken hours on the CAD. And here's my piece of nylon. Thanks, Pete. I did him a favour, and this is the scrap, and I've not given it back to him. Ha 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 ha. Anyway, so that is what I'm going to make. And this little toy is what I'm going to make it on. Now, I know that that's not a 3D printer, and I know that you can buy a 3D printer for a lot less than what you get this. This is a cheap little thing, and it was a bit over $2,000 Australian when I bought it. It might have been $2.5 or something like that. But as you can see by the mess underneath it, it gets used. I also installed this touch DRO. There's a little touch DRO board inside of here, and I made this little, it's a temporary thing, but I just dropped my phone on here, and my phone becomes a digital readout. I've got digital readout stuff on under here and a scale down there. So it's definitely more sophisticated than most people are going to want to have, and I've got to have a room to put it in, and I've got my mill over there, and I've got a drill press, and but I do this sort of stuff. So for me, and because I've got a lifetime of working with this stuff, here's my drawer full of micrometers, and yeah, I can agree that for most people who don't have my background and don't have the space, a 3D printer is absolutely a viable way of doing a job like I'm about to do. And so I don't say to anyone else you shouldn't have a 3D printer, but for me, when people say to me I should have a 3D printer, I mean, I just folded up a bit of aluminium to put the that phone in that I play music on. I've got this little set up for some music while I'm in here. I used my finger brake to do that. So yes, I've got different ways of doing things. So let's stop babbling and start machining. Here's the machine up piece. Now I've just got to drill 4 holes to mount it, and I'm thinking I've already got these. These should work to put it into the roof. They just spread out when you tighten them up, so that should be a better solution. And so they're the screws that go with it. So I just need to mark out the where to drill the 4 holes and drill them. And if I drill them 4mm, it should be fine. And then we can put it all back together again. Well, I forgot to video the last bit, but there's the final thing. Unfortunately, I touched the side of that little pipe just there with the drill, but there's the finished product, and I've got 4 plugs in there. They expand out. That gyprock is really, it's got no structure to it at all. It's probably the cheapest gyprock you can buy. So anyway, it's now supported, and I think with the plugs that I've got in there, it's significantly stronger than it was. I might need to wash that plug again, because it's a bit dirty for my hands, but broadly speaking, that's it. So there is the reason why I don't personally feel the need to have a 3D printer. I am able to make things like this that most people would use a 3D printer for. I think that it took me all in about an hour to design and machine that part up, and I think that someone with a 3D printer working from scratch would struggle to do that in an hour, including print time. And I've got something made out of a nice strong nylon with 100% infill. So there you go. And this is the beautiful weather we're having today. It's just a lovely day out there. Anyway, that'll do.